Hello and welcome to Reanimated. My name's Stuart. Joining me is, as always, the H.A. Conrad. Hey, what's up?
I am the H.A. I am here.
You heard it, folks. I'm only like 37% here. A little bit of a late night last night, but I'm going to push through like a boss. And so here we go. Episode 178. Today we're going to talk about Freakish, which is a show on Hulu. Who bought the rights to it, and it's got 2 seasons, which I didn't realize when I started this, but so we're going to be talking about the first season and then going through doing a recap of that. And it's so yeah, we'll get to that, but first we have a couple different news articles, somewhat heavily weighted towards The Walking Dead, which is kind of, I guess, how we do things.
Yeah, it is.
The first one is a bit of a tricky headline, saying Walking Dead zombie cause Breaking Bad meth blue. Wait, that doesn't make sense. Let's just
I don't know. It's a very odd title anyway.
Walking Dead producers blame Breaking Bad meth for zombie outbreak. But then, as you read the article, you realize it was just a joke.
Yes.
It was it came out at San Diego Comic-Con with Gail Ann Hurd, executive producer, asked what the cause of the zombie outbreak was, and she very quickly said, oh, it was the blue meth from Breaking Bad, and Rob Kirkman, who was also on the panel, quickly agreed and said, yes, that's canon. But then it turned out that they were being sarcastic. But this article really buries that part of the story.
It does, but I mean, given how prevalent this particular theory has been, remember the whole thing with Glenn and the car and all that fun stuff, this has been a continuous theory, so I don't think that that's going to stop fans from running with this.
Yep.
The people that subscribe to this particular theory, but it's kind of fun, and I've always loved it, and I've always loved how they've joked about it. So,
so
I'm all right with that.
This Screen Rant article takes it a little further and talks about the implications for people like Walter White and etc. It's it's worth a read, so we're going to have that in the show notes. I don't think, obviously they were kidding. I don't think there's any chance of that being a crossover because it would be really difficult to do. And was it Vince Gilligan also weighed in on it, didn't he?
Yep. Same thing. So all good with that. Sorry, clearly I'm not awake yet either. It's been a long week in the house of Conrad.
Take it to the next one.
Yep. So, and some of you may have seen that Chris Hardwick is being brought back by AMC at the conclusion of the investigation. Interestingly enough, the person who accused him did not participate in that investigation and basically said it was never her intention to do anything about it. She just came out. She wanted to just come out and talk about it. And, basically they did not find anything, but supposedly she did have things that she did not show them. So I think it's kind of hard to conduct an investigation without actually talking to the accuser or having the accuser participate. But it's also her right not to participate. And so, I mean, he is going to be back on all the AMC shows as far as we know. And I don't know what to draw from this other than the fact that, it's kind of to me, it's a little bit of a strange thing to come out there and to drop all this stuff and then sort of back away from it, though it's her right to do that. But,
Yep.
He's back, and so given the people that were running the investigation, I feel like if they had actually found, because if they didn't have her participate, perhaps they had other people participate, and so they didn't find anything according to what they said. But
yeah, and the investigation was run by a law firm. That was one of my questions I kept asking, like, who is doing this? Is it private investigators?
Loeb.
So it was it was attorneys with pretty good credentials, but also a very long client list, which included the Hearst Foundation. One way that Hardwick is not back is on social media. You might have thought like this news is broken a week and a half ago now, and he's actually not back on Twitter and Instagram where he was constantly posting and doing updates. So I thought that's interesting that he's really taking his time coming back into the public eye.
He hasn't been on social media. I would expect that he would ease in. And one of the things with these investigations is what we were talking about in the first place. How exactly are they investigating? And the fact that one of the clients for the firm that conducted the investigation is the Hearst I don't know, is it the businesses or the family specifically? But
It's the business, but it's also
I
a
gotta be
huge
a
law
little.
firm, so it's not that surprising that they'd have some crossover.
That's a little bit weird.
And I think
But
that they
anyway,
actually represented AMC before they represented Hearst. So
well, I guess as long as they sort of barred anybody working on the other thing from their investigation, that's fine. But the conflicts, and
yeah,
they put up some firewalls or something. But I guess, it's what we were talking about before. Exactly how do you investigate something like this other than have it be hearsay? And, but again, so he's moving back into this. And he is denied all these claims, and it's kind of hard without the person, if the person who is accusing him doesn't participate and doesn't provide the things that she said. She basically said she would only show those things to people that she wanted to, and that's her right. So
yeah.
we'll see what happens with this and see what happens when he comes back on air. But
And that should be soon, because Fear the Walking Dead comes back in like 2 weeks or a week. It's back
right.
soon, and so I hope, in theory, he is going to be the host again of Talking Dead, right? That's the word. So there will be like no real overlap. This whole thing happened during the break somehow.
Right. And lastly, there is a new work of fiction. Lizzie Borden is fighting some zombies in this new imagining of her life. And I don't know about this. Maybe we'll talk about it another later, but that's kind of an interesting twist. I don't know if they're implying that her family is zombies, and that's why she killed them so brutally, but it's kind of an interesting idea, so we'll look for that in the future.
This has some strange timing also, because isn't there a Chloe Sevigny project coming out about Lizzie Borden right now?
Yeah, Lizzie Borden's been a little bit, she's been around in the last 2 years. It is kind of incredible how much she stays in sort of the, I don't know, the zeitgeist around, horror stuff. She, given, the timing and all of that, I guess the story is odd and strange, and people like it. And they still have the Lizzie Borden house as a hotel now.
Oh boy.
You can stay there, like as a bed and breakfast, and you can stay there. So maybe it's a little bit of that going on, that people are trying to get the PR and stuff for that out there. But anyway, that's kind of an interesting thing. And lastly, I just wanted to throw out that Patient Zero is going to be released for distribution just online on August 14th.
Yeah.
And apparently they're doing a limited release a little later than that, but I am looking forward to that. We'll see what happens with it. I think it's definitely worth checking out. So we'll to be continued. But apparently the big news is that Matt Smith is sporting an American accent, which is a little bit of a departure for him. So we'll see how he does with that.
Yeah. I wonder if Natalie Dormer is too. If it's just all. But either way, cool. I watched the trailer on YouTube and I thought it looked kind of interesting, and I am jazzed. I want to see it. So awesome. We'll review that soon. We'll have to figure out how we're going to fit the second half of the season of Fear the Walking Dead, because I definitely want to be covering that because of where it left off and how disappointed we were with the first half of the season. But their marketing material seems to suggest that they think they're doing awesome, and so I want to keep up with them and check in on that.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess that's the news, and so let's move on to Freakish. So one of the interesting things about this show is the fact that the episodes are short. They're less than half an hour each, and that definitely makes it easier to watch.
So the episodes are, I liked that the episodes were short. It made it pretty easy to watch all four. One thing I will say is that one thing I found a little bit weird about this, or strange about this, or maybe a little not questionable in sort of the decisions, it kind of feels like a little bit like a teen sort of dramatic soap opera, but the zombie part of it is I don't know, the pacing of this whole thing, despite the fact that it's 20 minutes long, feels really slow to me. So
yes.
So
I agree.
even those 20 minutes feel like a really long time, and I think that sort of is strange because it feels like they have all the things to make this cool, and it's just not quite getting there. And so even in some of the scenes where they're, have actual confrontations with the zombies and things like that, some of it makes absolutely no sense at all. It's sort of like this thing is going after them full bore and then suddenly disappears, but like around the side of a locker for like 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
like it was about to destroy you, and then suddenly it's just kind of like pausing or not sort of going after you. So I think that there's some, and then there's the decisions, obviously, the stupid decisions that everybody always makes in a zombie show or a zombie movie.
Of course.
But still in this just felt really strange. So the premise, we should probably talk about that first, though.
I agree with you also on the pacing. I think that that's kind of interesting that there isn't even a zombie attack until episode 2. Like, the zombies actually don't even show up until episode 2, which of a zombie show, you're like, wait, no, there's no way. Like, zombies... Zombie genre typically does not like hold back on introducing zombies at the beginning of stuff, you know, because that's the action, that's the meat. But this one definitely does hold off. And then another element of this show are these characters, and they are the archetypical stereotypes of kids in detention, or a high school cast. For a Saturday, it's extremely busy. Every kind of what's the word? Every category of school is there. You've got your losers, although that guy calls everybody like Diesel the bully. You've got your Grover, who actually Grover doesn't really fit into a category, and that's why he's the hero. He's just like a handsome nerd. I don't know. You've got the the IT guy, the tech nerd, who might be the villain. It's probably is the villain. You've got the girl who likes to blow up cars of her ex-boyfriends. I'm not sure what category you would fit her in other than just badass girl.
I think she's a bad girl, and that's what it is. She's a bad girl,
yeah. You've got the jock and his girlfriend, and his friend is somehow the drug dealer. Those two usually aren't, like, next to each other, right? Noodle.
But he's also a jock. So
he's a jock who's also a drug dealer, yeah. So I guess they're kind of blurring some lines there. But I thought it was interesting that they haven't just taken these categories and been like okay with them being low level. They've amped them up, and I feel like they don't actually do Diesel justice.
Right, they kind of just throw him in there, and then they give him a couple of moments, and then that's it.
He's actually like 7 feet tall, though. There's one scene in the hallway where you see how big this guy is. He's enormous.
Which I didn't get, at least in the beginning, and then that same scene, I'm like, wait, how is this dude this tall?
He's taller than Chad Coleman. Yeah,
so the premise of this show is very much that this is a very active Saturday detention with every single group there represented in a intense way, a little bit more.
But not everybody's even in detention. It's just like all the sports are there practicing. The cheerleaders are there. The wannabe school president, who's another category, is there putting up her signs for the upcoming election, etc.
Yeah, no, they are all there, and this is, I mean, I have not been in high school for a very long time, clearly, but apparently maybe this is the norm, but it just seems a little bit coincidental that everybody there is there on a Saturday. And of course, they managed to drop in the fact that there is a big chemical plant in the town, and that it seems as if most people's parents work there. And so they sort of lead up to the big crisis, which is this thing, like an alarm system goes off, and it is not a drill. But they do this very, like, despite the fact that the pacing is so slow, there's this very weird thing where, look, they're seeing there's an explosion, and it's clearly a horrible explosion, and they all go and lock themselves in the school. Do you think that really, no matter what, kids would be leaving if they saw all those, like, chemical clouds coming out? I just don't think they would.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really show up until after everybody's left. I think that the kids would have potentially run out, but they also really thin down their survival group fast.
True. And
down to
that's
what,
the point.
like 6 people, including the coach. Like it goes from, I don't know, 30, 100 kids. Really quickly, they cut it right down to, and we're like, okay, we know this is the ensemble, unless they're going to have to introduce more characters now.
Right. And the weird thing is, though, is that despite all these kids doing all these things, the coach seems to be kind of the only adult around, from what it seems like.
That's true.
And so that's kind of weird, because I just don't think that that's what would happen. And it's fine, come up with something. But the fact that there was only one adult supervising all these people on a Saturday seemed a little unlikely to me. But you're right. They did winnow down the cast very quickly. And also, introed the idea that some of these people that have left are people that are known. You know, they have the relationship between the girl leaves. She's like, oh, I know you're looking out for me, and leaves. You know, all these people that were friends. And so they can recognize them when they come back. And they do come back, obviously, as are infected. And so I thought that was fine. But again, the pacing just seems really strange to me, given the 20 minutes that they have. So
I took that as a positive, the fact that it's moving a little slower. I mean, maybe it's curious. You don't have like an arc for each episode, but they are kind of focusing also on high school drama as opposed to a zombie thing. And it definitely feels like something that could be on the CW.
Totally. I mean, they've got all the elements there. They've got all the kids from the different factions. Yeah. They've got, some tension between two former friends or maybe friends who are on the outs. They've got the brother and the sister. They've got the crush. Like, so Grover is his crush on the bad girl. They've got teen pregnancy.
Yep.
They've got all of these things. And then they've got, Diesel is just sort of like the bad boy, but like troublemaker, but also has a sensitive side. I mean, they've got it all there.
Yeah. And then they have the computer nerd who is also like a diabolical genius who might be responsible for everything that's happened. And he's like 17 or whatever.
Right. And also that's interesting because normally they don't cast the nerd sort of in an evil way. He is more mastermind than your usual nerd. So that's kind of an interesting twist. And they get rid of the last adult really quickly. So they make this, and that's like a key scene. So they have, the infected that they've brought all into the infirmary. I mean, you all know what's coming when the coach tells them all to get away and that he'll just take care of all the infected. You know that that's not going to end well.
That's kind of a trope, right? In a show about kids to kill off the grown-ups. Then you have your like Lord of the Flies scenario, and it takes out that hierarchy, and you get so they have to kill off Chad Coleman's character.
Yeah.
But and they do it. He doesn't even get an on-screen death. Like he just gets
eaten. And just and then they set up the next part, which is that Mary, the little sister of Grover, gets bitten. And it's kind of hidden that she's bitten. She's hiding it from her brother, and he then hides it from the other folks when he finds out. Though I will say, she starts sweating pretty quickly. Yeah. Like they're spritzing her all over with that spray. So it's clear that something's happening there. I will say that for a group of kids that seems kind of angry or whatever, they're very well organized. I mean, they are keeping. They've got the radio thing set up to ask for help. They've got the rations and so much for both medical supplies and the food. So much so that they notice when Grover takes a bunch of medical supplies.
All he takes is hydrogen peroxide too.
I know,
it's not like...
but they act as if he's taken like the entire all the medical supplies that they have in the way that they react to it.
Yeah.
So so there's interesting things like that because the kids are very well organized. They're not. And I don't know that kids would be thinking about this, but maybe they're more resourceful than I was as a teenager. So, so that stuff's going on. I don't know. Like, I do think that one of the things that is explored a little too dramatically, I feel like they could have done it better, is the whole thing with Grover's sister. So you have the classic idea that somebody in this case his sister, is slowly turning into one of those infected. They don't know a lot about what's going on. He initially tried to hide it, so there's like a lack of trust between him and some of the other group. And there's just a lack of knowledge about how this progresses. I think that they've all seen zombie films, and that's kind of the interesting thing, is that they all think that the possibility that she'll turn into one of these things is there, especially after she starts kind of going crazy and spouting off really creepy things about about
she goes
them
from
knowing
this
where
sweet
they are.
little girl into like semi-zombie pretty quickly, and then starts talking about like what zombies know and how they can sense you, and it gets pretty creepy pretty fast.
But I do think that the idea that this is his sister, and he even calls it out and says, look, she liked Harry, and this is when she's fully turned. He's like, this is somebody who is playing the violin and liking Harry Potter, and now she's this, and we're going to kill her. Like, that is truly a thing that it sometimes is not explored so much in other shows and movies. So to have to go from this person who you love and seeing them in this way, it's kind of hard not to see them as somebody who's just sick and somebody who's still there and may be able to be brought back. So
even though she's disemboweled noodle who also got killed off camera.
Yeah, he did. It's interesting, all these off-camera kills.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I think that those kinds of things are something that makes this a little different than what we've seen. As I said, I do think some of the choreography and the editing could be a little bit better, especially given how intense they make her as a zombie. She's very fast.
Yeah.
She's very powerful. And in the locker room scene where they come upon her killing Noodle, I guess, is already dead, and she goes for, I can't remember the name of the jock girl from, but
I can't remember either of their names.
Yeah, me neither. But there's this whole like dramatic thing where she tries to get over the lockers, which I liked. But suddenly Mary the zombie just disappears, even though she's been very fast. And
yeah,
so there's this weird thing where the jock girlfriend gets over the lockers, her boyfriend finds her, but suddenly Mary's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So there's that going on. And then, of course, the intrigue with the nerdy dude and the radio, because, of course, they're sort of laying seeds for whatever the nefarious plan is. And also, he keeps throwing out some vague, and then they get a little bit more direct threats toward the bad girl, basically saying that he knows she's a thief, saying that she stole things for explosions, and implying that she actually was responsible for the plant exploding. And maybe there's some truth to that, because she backs down in front of Grover about whether to torture Mary or not, and find out what the weaknesses of the zombies are, the infected are. So that's an interesting kind of twist that they've thrown in here. That there's this underlying, I mean, we always have some, and Diesel even says everybody has secrets, although he says it in relation to the nerdy girl being pregnant,
which is another twist.
Yep. And man, she is really pregnant, though.
That is 8 months.
That is
why is she running for school president at 8 months pregnant?
Right, but that's also the other thing. I was like, okay, and they show how she hid it, but that I just don't think that is something you can really, really hide at that level. Maybe earlier on in the pregnancy, maybe, but not that. So.
Well, that's going to make for another interesting element of this show going forward. I don't know. Yeah. I'm kind of liking it. I know you're a little down on the pacing, but I kind of like the fact that it's got this slower pace, because you can consume it in these 23-minute episodes, and that's super easy. Even if there's not a whole lot of zombie action going on, if it is just character development, it's not as painful as one of these 60-minute Walking Dead episodes that we were bemoaning last season, or the last season that we reviewed, season 7. Those were really difficult to watch, and there wasn't always a lot going on, or they'd throw in like one token zombie scene. This one, 23 minutes, I don't care if there isn't a zombie. They could just do all like, oh, but he said and she said, and then I'm fine, or whatever, man. 23 minutes, I can get through that.
Right. No, it's good. The pacing thing is it just strikes me as odd that given the 23 minutes that they're not trying to pack a little bit more in. That's all.
That's fair.
And I do think that some of the editing and character development could be a little tighter, given that they only have 23 minutes. But I also like where, we've finished up with episode 4, and now Grover is at the point where he basically is, we left him kind of in a cliffhanger situation where it looked like he was going to take Mary out, because he basically said, if I were like this, I know what I would want.
And she asked him to kill her, didn't she?
She did. So
earlier on.
There's that too.
All right. Well, so that's kind of the gist of our review of first 4 episodes of Freakish. I'm on board. HA's a little bit more unforgiving in her perspective.
Hey, I will say that at the end of the 4th episode, I did almost skip into the 5, so I'm not as skeptical as you might think.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So that's a good sign. And so we're next time we're gonna get together and just finish it up. This first season is only 10 episodes. Second season is also 10 episodes. I also think that that's a good call. It hopefully makes for a tighter writing budget that people can actually meet instead of longer. And so, join us again next time when we hit up the next 6 episodes of Freakish in a massive marathon of Freakish watching. And hopefully you'll join us then. And in the meantime, you can get a hold of us on our website at reanimatedpodcast.com, on Twitter at reanimatedpcast, and you can send us emails at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com.
Awesome wrap up there, Stuart.
Hey, thanks.
So
Had to fit it in fast between the saw going on next to your
Bring in
apartment.
the saws. Yeah. So until next time, ciao.
Alrighty, bye-bye.